Ethan lifted his head. Just ahead, beyond the glass, he could see the terminal. Travelers moved quickly, focused, dragging luggage, talking into phones, chasing schedules that mattered to them. Then he saw her. She was slumped near a row of abandoned luggage carts, her back pressed against a gray pillar streaked with old oil stains. A thin blanket slid off her shoulders as her hands shook uncontrollably in her lap. Her head drooped forward, then lifted again, like she was fighting to stay conscious. People walked past her without slowing down. Most didn't look. A few glanced. None stopped. Ethan stood there, caught between the sliding doors behind him and the woman in front of him. His phone buzzed again. The gate would close any second now. He swallowed. "I'll miss my flight," he said quietly. The words felt heavier once they were out in the open, like a door closing somewhere behind his ribs. Ethan set his bag down and walked toward her. The closer he got, the more details he noticed. The cracked skin on her hands. The dark circles beneath her eyes. The way her breath came out in short, shallow bursts. "Hey," he said, lowering himself into a crouch a few feet away. He kept his voice calm, steady. "Can you hear me?" Her eyes opened. They were sharp for just a moment, alert with fear and embarrassment, before softening again. "I'm fine," she said, barely above a whisper. Ethan nodded, like he accepted the answer, even though they both knew it wasn't true. "I'm going to call for help," he said. "Just stay with me, okay?" She hesitated, then gave the smallest nod. As he dialed emergency services, his hand shook more than he expected. Not because of her. Because of everything else pressing down on him at once. The dispatcher asked questions. Location, condition, responsiveness. Ethan answered automatically, his eyes never leaving the woman's face. When he ended the call, silence rushed in. The kind of silence that gives your thoughts too much room. His flight had not been optional. That plane was taking him across the state for a custody hearing. One that had been postponed twice already. One the judge had made clear would not be delayed again. Ethan's ex-wife had lawyers, family money, a new husband, a bigger house, a better neighborhood. Ethan had a steady job, a clean record, and a daughter who still crawled into his bed during thunderstorms. The court said both parents loved their child, but love wasn't what they were measuring anymore. They were measuring optics, stability, appearances. He had scraped together the money for the ticket without thinking twice. He had kissed his daughter's forehead that morning and told her he would be home soon. Now, with every passing second, that promise felt thinner. The woman shifted beside him, her teeth chattering softly. Ethan took off his jacket and placed it around her shoulders. She stiffened, then relaxed when she realized what he was doing. "You don't have to," she murmured. "I know," he said. She glanced at his phone, still glowing faintly in his hand. "You're missing something important," she said. "Yes," Ethan answered. "For me?" He met her eyes. "I was supposed to catch a flight. I have a court hearing today." Her brow furrowed. "Court?" "A custody hearing," he said. "For my daughter." She stared at him now, really looking at him for the first time. At the tired lines around his eyes. At the way he held himself like someone who carried responsibility the way other people carried bags. "And you're staying," she said slowly. "Yes. If you believe no child should lose a parent because someone chose to help another human being, stay with this story. And if you believe caring still matters, let us know with a like right now." There was a long pause. Then she looked away, blinking hard. "Most people don't care," she said. Ethan didn't argue. He just sat there with her. The paramedics arrived quickly, bright jackets, calm voices, efficient movements. One knelt beside her, checking her pulse. Another asked Ethan what had happened. "She was already here when I arrived," Ethan said. "She was shaking pretty bad." They worked with quiet focus. One of them asked if Ethan was family. "No," he said, then stopped. "I'm just helping." The paramedic nodded, like that was enough of an explanation. As they prepared the stretcher, the woman reached out and lightly grabbed Ethan's sleeve. "They won't care why you weren't there," she said suddenly. Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" "The judge," she said. Her voice had steadied now. Clearer. Older somehow. "They'll write it down as absence. That's all they'll see." His chest tightened. "How do you know that?" She closed her eyes for a moment. Because I missed one once. The words landed hard. One appointment, she continued. I was sick, no ride, no one to help. After that, everything changed. Ethan didn't know what to say. One of the paramedics looked up from the clipboard. Sir, we can note that you were here when we arrived. Time, reason, everything. The woman's eyes opened. She looked at Ethan with urgency now. Do that, she said. Please. Ethan hesitated only a second. Yes, he said. Please do. The paramedic nodded and kept writing. Before they loaded her into the ambulance, she looked at Ethan again. Her face was pale, but her gaze was steady. God sent you, she said. Ethan shook his head slightly. I'm just a guy who missed a flight. She gave a faint smile. You cared enough to stop, she said. That matters. The doors closed. The ambulance pulled away. Ethan stood alone in the parking garage, the sound of the siren fading into the distance, a piece of official paper in his hand, and no flight to catch anymore. He didn't know what the judge would decide. He didn't know what this would cost him, but he knew one thing. If his daughter ever asked him what kind of man he was, he would know how to answer. Ethan didn't sleep that night. He lay on the narrow couch in his apartment, staring at the ceiling while the city outside hummed and faded in uneven waves. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the parking garage again, the woman's shaking hands, the stretcher wheels locking into place, the empty space on his phone where his boarding pass used to be. At 3 a.m, his lawyer's message finally came through. It was short. Careful. We'll address the missed appearance. Be ready for anything. Ethan read it 3 times, then set the phone down face first on the coffee table, like that might keep the words from crawling back into his head. In the bedroom, his daughter slept curled around her stuffed rabbit, her knees tucked up under her chin the way she had always slept when she was worried about something she didn't yet have words for. Ethan stood in the doorway for a long time, just watching her breathe, letting the quiet settle around him. She had been quiet lately. Not sad, not withdrawn, just careful. Like a child who had learned that saying the wrong thing could tip a room in the wrong direction. The next afternoon, Ethan sat across from his ex-wife at a small cafe halfway between their neighborhoods. It had been her idea. Neutral ground, she had called it. Somewhere public, somewhere polite. She looked put together, as always. Clean lines. Soft smile. The kind of calm that came from knowing your life was not about to be uprooted by a single decision. I heard you missed the hearing, she said, stirring her coffee without looking up. I was delayed, Ethan replied. She raised an eyebrow, just slightly. That's not how it looks. That phrase again. How it looks. Her husband hadn't come with her, but his presence lingered anyway. In the new clothes their daughter wore when she came home. In the way she talked about their house. Bigger. Quieter. With rules that were never explained, only enforced. He's good with her, Ethan's ex-wife said, as if reading his thoughts. He provides structure. Ethan nodded. He didn't argue. Arguing never helped. What does she want? He asked instead. She hesitated. Just a beat too long. She's a child, she said finally. She doesn't know what's best for her. That night, Ethan made spaghetti because it was the one meal his daughter always ate without complaint. They sat at the small kitchen table, the light overhead buzzing softly. Are you mad at me? She asked suddenly, twirling noodles around her fork. Ethan froze. Why would I be mad at you? She shrugged. Mom says you were supposed to be somewhere important. And you didn't go. Ethan set his fork down. He took a breath. I was supposed to be at court, he said. But someone needed help, and I stayed. She studied him carefully, like she was checking for cracks. Will I have to live there all the time? The question landed heavier than anything a lawyer had said. Do you want to? Ethan asked. She shook her head immediately, then stopped herself like she was worried someone might see. I like it here, she said quietly. It feels normal. What doesn't feel normal? Ethan asked. She pressed her lips together. Her fingers tightened around the fork. He gets mad, she said. Not loud, just cold. Ethan didn't interrupt. He says I should be grateful, she continued, that other kids would want this. Ethan reached across the table and placed his hand over hers. She didn't pull away. Thank you for telling me, he said. 2 days later, Ethan received a call from an unfamiliar number. When he answered, A woman's voice greeted him. Calm, professional. "This is Marlene," she said. "We met briefly at the airport." Ethan straightened. "Are you okay?" "I'm better," she replied. "I wanted to thank you, and to talk." They met at a small community center near the shelter where Marlene was staying. She looked different now. Cleaner, still tired, but steadier. Like someone whose feet had found ground again, even if it wasn't solid yet. "I lost my son," she said without preamble. "Not because I didn't love him, because I didn't show up once." Ethan listened. "They said I was unstable," she continued. "That he needed consistency, a better environment." She gave a humorless smile. "Sound familiar?" She told him about the paperwork, the missed appointment, the way the system closed around her like a door with no handle on the inside. "When you told me about your hearing," she said, "I saw it happening again, and I couldn't let it." She slid her phone across the table. On the screen was a short video, time-stamped, clear. A paramedic explaining why Ethan had stayed. No drama, just facts. "And this," she added, handing him a folded document. "The incident report. Make copies." Ethan stared at the paper, then at her. "Why are you helping me?" Marlene met his gaze. "Because no one helped me." "Let me ask you something. If a child feels safer with less money but more love, who should the law listen to? Tell us in the comments." The night before the rescheduled hearing, Ethan sat with his daughter on the couch. The television played quietly in the background, but neither of them was watching. "If the judge asks you questions," he said gently, "you just tell the truth, okay?" She nodded. "Can I say I want to stay with you?" Ethan's throat tightened. "Yes," he said. "You can say that." She leaned into his side and rested her head against his arm. "You always stop," she said sleepily. "For what?" Ethan asked. "For people," she murmured. "For me." Ethan closed his eyes. Outside, the city lights flickered on and off, indifferent to the weight of the morning that was coming. The courthouse smelled like old paper and floor cleaner. Ethan noticed it the moment he stepped inside, the way some people notice weather before rain. The sound of his shoes echoed too loudly against the tile, as if the building itself was paying attention to every step he took. His lawyer met him near the metal detectors. She looked prepared in the way people do when preparation is the only armor they have left. "They moved your case up," she said quietly. "We won't have much time." Ethan nodded. He had expected that. The system rarely waited for people who were already behind. They sat on a hard wooden bench outside the courtroom. Other families filled the hallway, some whispering, some staring at nothing, some pretending this was just another appointment on an ordinary day. Ethan's daughter sat beside him, her feet not quite reaching the floor. She swung them gently, back and forth, a rhythm she had used since she was small whenever she felt unsure. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, but her fingers curled into his sleeve and stayed there. Across the hall, his ex-wife arrived with her husband. The man walked a step ahead of her, one hand resting lightly on her back, guiding. He was tall, well-dressed, calm in a way that felt practiced. When he noticed Ethan, his smile came quickly and disappeared just as fast, like it had only existed out of habit. Their daughter stiffened. The man leaned down and whispered something in her ear. Whatever it was, it made her shoulders tense. Ethan saw it. He saw all of it. "You don't have to talk to him right now," Ethan said softly. The man straightened. "She's my family," he replied, his voice pleasant, controlled. "We're just reminding her that everything's going to be fine." Ethan didn't respond. He focused on his daughter instead. "Remember," he whispered, "you tell the truth. That's all." She nodded again. This time she didn't look up. Inside the courtroom, the air felt heavier. The judge sat above them, already flipping through a thick folder. Papers shuffled, names were called. When Ethan's case was announced, his stomach tightened like a pulled knot. The judge looked up. "Mr. Carter," she said, "you failed to appear at your previously scheduled hearing." There it was. No preamble, no cushioning. "Yes, Your Honor," Ethan said. "I did." The lawyer on the other side didn't waste time. "We believe this absence demonstrates a pattern of poor prioritization," he said smoothly. "While Mr. Carter claims otherwise, the reality is that stability requires consistency, something my client can provide." Ethan's ex-wife kept her gaze forward. Her husband rested his hands on the table, confident, unmoving. Ethan felt the familiar pull of self-doubt. The question he had asked himself 100 times already surfaced again. Was I wrong to stop? The judge tapped her pen lightly. "Mr. Carter," she said, "do you have an explanation?" Ethan stood. His hands felt too big for his body, like they didn't quite belong. "I missed my flight because I stopped to help someone who needed medical attention," he said. The courtroom was quiet. The opposing lawyer raised an eyebrow. "With respect, Your Honor, that is unfortunate. But this court must focus on the child, not unrelated acts of charity." Unrelated. The word stung. Ethan's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, if I may, we have documentation explaining the circumstances." She handed over the paramedic report. The judge read it carefully, her expression unreadable. The opposing lawyer smiled faintly. "Even so," he said, "this doesn't change the larger issue. My client's home offers more resources. A two-parent household. Financial security." The judge nodded slowly. "Resources do matter." Ethan's chest tightened. When the judge asked to speak with the child, Ethan felt his pulse in his throat. His daughter stood slowly and walked to the chair beside the judge. Her feet still didn't touch the floor. She folded her hands in her lap the way Ethan had taught her when she felt nervous. The judge leaned forward slightly. "You don't have to answer anything you don't want to," she said gently. "Do you understand?" "Yes," she replied. "Can you tell me where you feel safest?" the judge asked. There was a pause, a long one. "With my dad," she said. The courtroom stirred. The opposing lawyer cleared his throat. "Children often choose the less structured environment," he said. "It doesn't necessarily reflect what's best for them." The judge held up a hand. "Let her finish." She took a breath. "At my mom's house I have nice things," she continued, "but I feel like I'm always doing something wrong." Her mother shifted in her seat. The man beside her stared straight ahead. "He gets mad," the girl said quietly. "Not yelling, just quiet mad. And then, no one talks to me." Ethan felt his eyes burn, but he stayed still. "I don't feel scared at my dad's house," she said. "Even when things are hard." Silence filled the room again, thicker this time. The judge leaned back. She looked tired now. Thoughtful. "I need time," she said finally. "We'll take a brief recess." Ethan sat down slowly. His lawyer leaned toward him. "That helped," she whispered. "But I can't promise anything." Across the aisle, his ex-wife avoided his eyes. Her husband's jaw tightened, just slightly, like something had slipped. As they waited, Ethan felt the weight of the past days press in on him. The missed flight, the woman in the parking garage, the choice that had brought him here. For the first time, he wondered what would have happened if he hadn't stopped. The bailiff called them back to their seats. The judge returned, the folder back in her hands. Ethan held his breath. The judge spoke slowly. "This case is not simple," she said. "One household offers more material security. The other offers continuity of care." She paused. "I am inclined," she continued, "to rule in favor of the environment that minimizes risk." Ethan's heart sank. His lawyer's shoulders stiffened. The judge looked down at her notes again. "However," she said, "before I issue a final decision, I want to review one more item." She lifted the paramedic report. "This document," she said, "does not describe neglect. It describes a conscious choice to prioritize immediate human need." She looked directly at Ethan. "Mr. Carter, is there anything else you wish the court to consider?" Ethan swallowed. This was it. The edge. "Yes," he said quietly. "I'd like the court to hear why I stayed." "Yes," he said again. "I'd like the court to hear why I stayed." The judge nodded once. "You may proceed." Ethan didn't look at his ex-wife. He didn't look at her husband. He looked at the judge, then down at his hands, and finally at his daughter, who sat very still beside his lawyer. "I was running late," he began. "The flight was already boarding. I knew missing it could hurt my case. It could look like I wasn't willing to fight hard enough to be there for my daughter." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "In the parking garage, I saw a woman who was sick. She was alone. People were walking past her like she wasn't there." The opposing lawyer shifted, but said nothing. "I could have kept walking," Ethan continued. Most people did. I didn't. I stopped. I called for help. I stayed until it came. He took a breath. I didn't do it to make a point. I didn't think anyone would ever know about it. I did it because if I walked away, I wouldn't be able to tell my daughter that I taught her the right thing. The judge listened without interrupting. I missed the flight, Ethan said. That's true. But I didn't miss the chance to be the kind of parent I want her to learn from. The room was silent when he finished. Not heavy, not tense, just attentive. The judge leaned back in her chair. She didn't speak right away. She studied the folder again, then looked toward Ethan's ex-wife. Mrs. Carter, she said, I'd like to ask you a question. Ethan's ex-wife straightened. Of course. Your daughter described feeling afraid in your home, the judge said. Can you explain that? Her jaw tightened for a moment. She's sensitive, she said. We're working on structure. Children need boundaries. The judge turned slightly. And your husband? The man cleared his throat. I hold her accountable, he said. That's all. The judge nodded slowly. Accountability should never feel like fear, she said. The man said nothing. The judge called the child back to the chair beside her. This time she lowered her voice. I want to ask you something very simple, she said. When you make a mistake, who do you feel safe telling? The girl didn't hesitate. My dad. Why? Because he helps me fix it, she said. He doesn't make me feel bad for trying. The judge smiled faintly, not warmly, thoughtfully. Thank you, she said. You may sit. When the girl returned to her seat, Ethan reached for her hand. She squeezed his fingers, small and steady. The opposing lawyer stood. Your Honor. With respect, emotional preference should not outweigh long-term stability. My client can provide... The judge raised her hand. Stability is not just financial, she said. It is emotional, behavioral, predictable. She closed the folder. This court is tasked with protecting the well-being of a child, she continued. Not the image of success, not the appearance of order. She looked directly at Ethan. Mr. Carter, you made a choice that cost you something. That matters. Then she turned to his ex-wife. And you, Mrs. Carter, must understand that a home where a child feels afraid is not a stable one, no matter how polished it appears. The room felt very still now. This is not a simple decision, the judge said. I am granting primary physical custody to the father, the judge said, with structured visitation to the mother, contingent upon counseling and review. For a moment, Ethan didn't understand what she had said. The words passed through him without landing. Then his lawyer exhaled sharply beside him. His daughter looked up at him, eyes wide. Does that mean? Yes, Ethan said, his voice breaking despite his best effort. It means you're coming home with me. She wrapped her arms around his waist before anyone could stop her. The bailiff looked the other way. Across the aisle, his ex-wife sat frozen. Her husband stared straight ahead, his face tight, like something had been taken from him that he had assumed was already his. Outside the courthouse, the air felt different. Lighter. Like the world had quietly adjusted its weight. Ethan and his daughter sat on the steps for a moment, neither of them ready to stand yet. Did you mean what you said? She asked. About stopping? Yes, Ethan replied. Every word. She nodded. I think that's why the judge listened. Ethan smiled. I think so too. 2 weeks later, Ethan was at the same community center where he had met Marlene. He hadn't planned on seeing her again. Life had a way of pulling him forward fast once things started moving. She was sitting near the window, folding donated clothes with careful hands. She looked healthier, stronger, still worn, but grounded. You look different, she said when she saw him. So do you, Ethan replied. They sat across from each other with paper cups of coffee between them. How did it go? She asked. Ethan didn't answer right away. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded document. He didn't hand it to her. He just held it. I got custody, he said. Marlene closed her eyes. She didn't smile. She breathed out slowly, like someone releasing a weight they had been carrying for a stranger. I'm glad, she said. She belongs with you. She does, Ethan agreed. Marlene looked at him for a long moment. You know, she said, when I missed my appointment, no one asked why. They just wrote it down. Ethan nodded. They asked why for you, she continued. That means something. He hesitated. You helped make that happen. She shook her head gently. I just remembered what I wish someone had done for me. Before Ethan stood to leave, Marlene spoke again. You cared, she said. That's saving, whether people like the word or not. He nodded. That night, Ethan tucked his daughter into bed. The storm outside rattled the windows softly. She held her stuffed rabbit close. Dad? She asked. Yes? If I see someone who needs help, should I stop? Ethan thought of the parking garage, the missed flight, the courtroom. Yes, he said. If you can. Always. She smiled and closed her eyes. Ethan turned off the light and stood in the doorway for a moment, listening to her breathe. Sometimes doing the right thing costs you time. Sometimes it costs you comfort. And sometimes it costs you a flight. But every once in a while, it gives you something that no schedule or flight ever could. Your family.